On this video, I'm going to give you my full thoughts on the Inmotion V14 50S when I've done about 2,000 kilometers on it. What is my thoughts and do I recommend this one? If you want to know that and much more, stay tuned until the end of the video. Hi everyone, Marcus here from MADpack, and if you love UCs, PVs and everything that have a E of electricity, this is still the place for you, but for that, please continue to comment, to share and to give some love. Otherwise, unfortunately, because I'm in the UK, it's harder and harder to get electric unicycles. But for a while that I've been riding with the Inmotion V14 50S. If you don't have seen, I've done a comparison between this one and the V11Y, and why I prefer the V11Y compared to the V14 50S for some things, and obviously I prefer the V14 for other things, but they are not as I expected, if it makes sense, because when I received the V14 I thought this is going to be the wheel for me for every single situation, but it's not, and definitely it's something to have in mind when we talk about the V14 50S. It's an amazing wheel, but also during this video I'm going to give my thoughts as bringing this wheel to someone that is an experienced rider and give this wheel to someone that is new, because I've seen and I have received multiple messages in private asking, should I buy this wheel for me? It's my first wheel, and so on and so on. So we'll go there in a minute. So starting from the top, I simply hate the trolley handle. I think it's functional, it works perfectly fine, and I think that I simply hate because all the wheels from Inmotion, besides obviously the E20 that is a cheap wheel, they always had amazing trolley handles. But this one, even if you have this middle section, it doesn't really work all the time. So many times, even if I prefer to have it here, you move it and it closes it, or it doesn't stop here. So multiple times I'm in here and it's too tall for me because I'm quite a short guy. I hope that Inmotion in the future can make something better. If they want something similar to this, I'll say that they could inspire themselves on the trolley handle on the Kingsong 16X. That in this type of configuration was one of my favorites, but definitely they need to make something a little bit stronger, a little bit more beefy if you want, because this is a 40 kilo wheel, and because of that I definitely don't like so much. On the top, obviously, you're going to have your charging ports. I'm not going to show closely these sections because it makes no sense. I found it super easy to charge because you just turn it off and the charging ports are straight there, or if you want you can always bend to the front if it's easier for you. So you have two ways to basically park your wheel. You don't have to have the mud guard, so that's something that is completely optional. So if you want, you can remove it and it will look better in my opinion, but I found that I wanted to use it because it was better for me to use the charger and to don't damage. So have that also in mind. When we talk about the screen, I have to say to you guys that I'm not a big fan, and the reason is when you look to the V12 high torque, V13, we are used to a small screen but with colors and touched. Here is a screen like a big odd wheel. Because it's a screen like a big odd wheel, I need to compare to a big odd wheel, and when I think about that, I think about the Big Odd Hero, because the position of the screen was perfect for me. It was the best one until today, and it was super easy for me to just look down and see how fast I was going. Because this one, the screen is a little bit more on the inside, it's really hard for you to reach those numbers, and you need to bend your head quite a bit. And in other words, you are taking too much of your eyes from what is happening in front of you. So I'm not really a fan. And the fact that when you look to this screen, you don't have all the information that you could customize. So for example, talking about myself, I like it to see what was the maximum speed that I could reach and what was the length, what was the range that I have done until that specific moment. So those type of information, I need to go to my phone and check it. So I'm not a fan whatsoever of that. Definitely something to have in mind. I think that Inmotion can bring back a touch screen. I know that this is irrelevant, but I like also the fact that I could have a photo with my wife in there, so it makes a little bit more personalized. All these small details that Inmotion was bringing every year, that was making me wanting their wheels more than the others, and I think that this was a massive loss for Inmotion to don't have done the same approach on the screen. It's good, it works fine, you can see the speed, the battery, and which mode you have put it, and if you have any problems on your wheel, you have a triangle, and we'll talk about that because I had one but it disappeared. When we talk about the button to turn on and turn off, very easy to access, rubberized material, feels good, but you don't have any kill switch. So definitely something that I think that Inmotion could improve. Maybe if they put like a double tap and cut the balance, because if you want to lift this wheel, you have to completely turn off and turn off. It's not a big deal for me because I avoid as much as I can to lift this wheel, because it's really heavy and it's not really comfortable, because in the end of the day you have to grab by these two handles and lift it up, and it's not easy, it's quite heavy. So definitely it's not a wheel that you want to carry around because it's too much weight for doing that. And as I said before, the V14 50S or even the V14, this is more like a motorbike feeling. And I had someone that follows me saying that these handles, they broke, and here on the back it basically broke where is the motherboard or the front. I didn't get it really. To be honest, I have lifted so many times because I have to lift it up every single day when I arrive home to put it to charge, and it never broke. So I think that the plastic is good enough. Obviously I never had any crash, hopefully, and I hope it will continue like that. But the handles for me, they look fine. If I want to be picky, these handles, they could be in metal, but also remember, if they are metal, if you damage them, to replace them, you have to invest more money. Plus, if they are metal and you crash, it means that you're going to have more force going towards the inside of your wheel. So in other words, yeah, you may have saved your handle, but maybe you broke your inner shell, and in that way it's going to cost you more to replace and to repair it. So have that in mind. Another thing that I really like on this wheel is the fact, obviously, that you have these little guards on the front and on the back, that if you have a crash, you just have to replace it, and inside, out of the box, you have some extra bits that you can basically swap the ones that you have in there for the new ones, so definitely a plus. When we talk about the front light, it's very similar to the front light that you find on the V11Y, but after testing back and forward the two, and some days going with one wheel, some days going with the other, I found that this one is slightly brighter than the V11Y. Maybe because obviously the battery here is slightly bigger. We are talking about 2020 watt hours, and obviously the Inmotion V11Y is just 1500. The power is definitely slightly brighter, so it's a little bit more power on the front light, and I love that I can bend quite high with this one, so I'm not limited to the basically the shape of the wheel that on the V11Y doesn't allow me to pull a little bit further up. That's something that I like to do with all my wheels, because I ride on redways, so it's quite dark. Many times there is no light whatsoever around me, so I like a little bit pointing further away from me, because it is going to make it much better. Because if you have to do, for example, a slight hill, you'll not see anything if it's pointing so low. And here you can definitely adjust that, so definitely a plus. Similar to the experience if you had an Abram, you know that you could adjust the front light, so it's basically the same, so definitely a plus in there. Under here I have a horn, so this is not from the wheel, but this is one of the updates that I've done on my V14 50S. It's amazing, but have a massive flaw, and we'll talk that on a specific video. When we look a little bit lower, you have the mudguard, and this mudguard is quite a hard material. I don't like so much. It reminds me a bit of Big God mudguard, but it's not in that kind of quality, so it's a good plastic, but I was used to the more flimsy rubberized material that Inmotion was bringing to every single wheel. So Inmotion, please bring them back, because if I don't have this mudguard on the back and I have it just exposed like this, I'm going to break it if I have an accident. Besides the fact that if this hits your legs, it's going to hurt you more than if you have like a rubberized material. I hope that in future generations like the P6 or the V18, Inmotion comes back to their mudguards in rubberized material, because like the screen is something that always screams Inmotion. So I really hope that they do that once again in future wheels. When we look a little bit lower, you have your tire, and I have to say to you guys that is definitely one of the things that I hate the most on this wheel, and I need to investigate which tire options do I have. Is there any Michelin tire that will fit? I don't think so, because it's really hard to find tires of 16-inch for our electric unicycles from reputable brands like Continental, Michelin, and other brands, a Goodyear. But I definitely need to search for something else, and I'm definitely thinking to change this off-road tire to a street tire. And don't get me wrong, for many of you guys that you ride on the mountains and stuff like that, you definitely want this, and it gives you that extra reassurance that you are stable, but in the same time makes this wheel more top heavy, because having a tire that is so thick, when the rubber is so thick, is going to make you stand even higher on your electric unicycle. So not a fan whatsoever of this tire, on this wheel at least. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and I think they should have tested a little bit more, and I definitely want to change this tire. I think I'm going to maintain my V11, that I have an off-road tire on that one, as my wheel when it's snowing, or even my V12 high torque. And this one I may change to a street tire and making it more nimble and making it closer to the floor, because when you put obviously the street tire, you'll not be so high, so I think you'll have more control on your wheel. But I've done something extra that obviously if you've seen the comparison between the V11Y and this one, you know what it is, but we'll go there in a minute. But I definitely think that Inmotion, when is looking to do their wheels, and that's something that we are used to in Inmotion, because if you look to Inmotion, they always choose tires that are a little bit thinner or more in V shape. Like for example with the V12 high speed, that tire, I have to say, is horrible, because after basically 1000 kilometers completely gone, at least the way that I ride. It was responsible for the experience that you get on the V12. That was simply amazing, super nimble. Even if they were top heavy, it was easy to change directions, and I don't think that that's really possible to do in here. It's possible in a certain way, that you have to sacrifice the PSI that you have on the tire. So if you want the best experience for someone with the same weight as me, 80 kilos, the best PSI is around 17 to 18 PSI, because you're going to be a little bit closer to the floor. And funny fact, even if the rubber is a little bit softer, it makes it not so round, so it's easier to curve. But also I don't recommend to ride with those type of PSI. This was me basically testing. So that's why I'm saying that if you change to a street tire, you're going to have a much better experience with the V14 50S. And like I said, I think one of the big reasons why people don't like this wheel is the tire. Is really not the best configuration. Only if you tell me, obviously, I'm going to ride on the mountains and I'm going to do some jumps. Yeah, the tire is more than fine. And having an off-road tire brings you an advantage, that it means that that tire is going to take a long time until it runs out. And we know how hard it is to change a tire. Obviously here is going to be much easier, and until today is the easiest wheel to disassemble from Inmotion. So I'm curious to see what is coming next, and I hope that they don't do a step back like they've done with the screen on future wheels. So I want to continue to see a wheel that is super easy to just change the tire. And another thing that I think that Inmotion made the wrong decision was to remove the sound wave, but I understand why they've done that, because when I look to my V12 high speed, I always had a lot of issues with the sound wave. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, or you have a massive delay, and after you can just sort it out by putting to charge, and the other morning that sound wave is back to normal. So I think they've done that to avoid issues and to avoid complaints about the sound wave. But I think that they can definitely bring it back for future generations, because if we think about electric cars, for example, when they are on the city, they go slowly and they add on some noise for pedestrians to see the car. So I really think that will be safer if wheels they come with that integrated on that device, because I found much safer with the V12 high torque. But obviously having an off-road tire makes you a little bit more visible, because these tires, they are very loud, so people see or hear the wheel coming, but when you come really fast. If you go slower, you don't hear so much. So definitely something that I hope that they can integrate in the future, but that means they need to put it back some speakers on their wheels, something that doesn't happen on this wheel or on the V13. When we talk about the rim on this one, it's a good one, is much thicker, is much beefier than other generation wheels. so definitely a plus. I really like the fact that the borders, they are in gray, so it means that even if you try to change the tire, you will not damage the ink, something that was happening with other wheels like the V12 high torque. So definitely a plus in there. When we talk about the batteries, they are really well isolated. This material is not plastic, so it's like a metal material, and you have protections also on the bottom, so it's almost impossible that you hit your battery packs. So definitely a plus, something that I really like about Inmotion, plus the fact that you have all these basically plates that you put it on top, so you have that layer, you have obviously your power pads that Inmotion provides out of the box, and they are really good. You don't need to buy any power pads whatsoever. I like even the profile is not really thick like other power pads that I've seen in the past, so it doesn't make your wheel look super bulky. So definitely something that I like, and the fact that this rubberized material here on the middle is harder, so it makes that it's softer to the skin, the black part, but the middle section is harder, so you'll feel that it doesn't go further down the way, if it makes sense. And if you need to remove it, even have like little bits that will allow you to put them back in the same position that they were before, so definitely a plus. But when we talk about their pedals, it's simply, they are okay, but I don't understand why they do pedals without removable spikes. And on that one, is not like it happens on the V11Y that you could add on those spikes by yourself, but the pedals that comes with the V11Y, they are super thin, and I think they've done that to try to reduce weight, because obviously we are talking about a wheel that is already 40 kilos, but it makes no sense because after a while they will not give you any grip. So obviously I changed, and here I have some pedals from eWheels, and it works much better. I feel much safer, I feel that I have much more grip, and if these spikes they are gone, I can just replace them, so definitely a plus. So like you could understand, I had a massive issue with this wheel, that is the riding experience, because I always felt that I was slightly too high, and when it's to start riding from a stationary position, it's never been a good experience. It was like it was happening with the V11, but with a big issue that this wheel have 40 kilos, so 10 kilos more than the V11 with 29.5 kilos. That was definitely something that I hated, but eWheels sent me basically an adapter that you remove the bottom part, and you'll be able to basically put this pedal slightly closer to the floor, and it make a little bit better. But like I said, until I don't decide to remove this tire and put like a street tire that will bring the wheel even closer to the floor, I don't think that I'm going to be fully comfortable with the wheel, and I can't really say that the wheel gives me what I'm expecting. So if I put you in perspective, if you have ride the Bigod EXN, that was a wheel that I simply love it, not the torque was horrible, you had a lot of pedal dipping, but the EXN, the high speed one. If I put a street tire, I think even if this wheel is heavier, I'll have a similar experience, because if I just drop slightly the position of these pedals even lower, I'll be more planted, and I think I'll have much more control over this wheel. So that's my hope, and I need to figure it out which tire will fit here and will deliver that to me, and also will make me safe even if it's raining. And that's why I prefer to have wheels that I can fit Michelin City Pros and stuff like that, because they are tires that I know that even if it's raining a lot, they give a lot of grip. So I need to see if it's wide enough to fit something like that, but I doubt, because it's really complicated to fit tires of 16-inch from good brands. When we talk about the suspension, I have to say that is the best suspension that I ever tried until today. It's super responsive, you can customize to your needs, and I don't need to have a pump always with me. It's really easy to adjust the rebound. It's very easy to reach them because I don't have anything on the way. So definitely a plus. Another thing that I'm not so happy about, it's the backlight. It's really bright, more bright than the V11Y, but I don't really like the design. I think that they could have done something that will be even more visible. I like the fact that it's on the top, but also the quality of the plastic feels a little bit more low quality. So definitely something that I hope in the future they can basically integrate better with their wheels. In here, ignore this little box. This is basically the battery for the horn that I have on the front from PitZoom, but we'll talk about that in the near future. Looking to the back, you have obviously your stand. Is really a good stand. For more than I beat the wheel have tendency to just stay in that position. So definitely a plus. And like I said, if you don't want to use it, you have obviously the option to put it on the front. It's not so secure, but it's secure enough, at least in my opinion, to use it, the part on the front. Another thing that I just want to point it out that it's not really in motion is the fact that this wheel is really wide between your legs. It almost feels like Abrams, that for me it was even hurting a little bit my knees because I'm really short. It's not the case. When you get used to, it's comfortable, but when you are used to Inmotion wheels and you are just coming from a V11Y or other wheels that they feel quite skinny, and after you jump on this one you really feel your legs coming a little bit more further away from each other, so it feels a bit more that you are just jumping on top of a horse, if it makes sense. Here on the sides you have this rubberized material and you have this V shape, if you want, or this pyramid shape that will allow to have a good comfort and not being that square shape that you'll find, for example, on the Abrams. So if you are thinking it's going to be uncomfortable like the Abrams, no, it's not. This wheel feels comfortable, but if you are used to something really skinny like other wheels from Inmotion, you will notice that, and it's not going to be so easy to get used to if you are a new rider. Now that we went all around this wheel, let's talk about the riding experience. And I want also to bring the reason why I started riding electric unicycle. I wanted something that was portable, I wanted something that was enjoyable, that was fast enough, and I think we are reaching a point that electric unicycles are becoming something else. And I completely understand that is necessary. I completely understand the market for something like the V14 50S, but I don't understand why wheels they are already reaching 50 kilos. In the past I used to say that a good wheel should be up to 35 kilos, and I continue to say that because when you go to 40 kilos we need to start to look to small details, which type of tire you are going to put on your electric unicycle. Because like I said, I'm almost sure if I change the tire on the V14 50S and I put a more V-shaped tire with a street tire, this wheel is going to shine. And that's something that I definitely need to search and to see which tire fits in here and change it, and having a go and maybe doing another video for you and say to you if I was right or if I was wrong. This is not an electric unicycle anymore. So let me just say, when we talk about electric unicycles, I think about portability. It's easy to go around people, it's fun, you don't need to do any effort to basically turn. Okay, when you go in here it feels like a motorbike. It's heavy, not as a motorbike, but you need to put more your body, and you need to understand that you can't avoid a small obstacle in a couple of seconds or in 1 second. So that is easy to do, for example, on a wheel like the V11Y, that someone just brake hard in front of you with another scooter and you are so close that you have time to just curve towards the side and avoid it. When you are with something like this that is already 40 kilos, that obviously when faster you go, more weight you put it and harder it is to do a change of direction, having a tire that is so round like this one can be a problem. So I'm going to insist in this. If you are looking to a V14 50S, is an amazing wheel, I love it, but it's going to completely change the way that you ride. It's going to even change where you ride, because giving my example, going to work, I used to do the same trip for 6 years. I'm going to repeat. I used to do the same trip to work for 6 years. Since I have the V14 50S, I found another road, and that became my new way to go to work. Why? Because this works as a motorbike. Doing a straight line, pushing hard, it's simply amazing. Going around people and avoiding small obstacles, I think I'm better with the V11Y. So, in other words, when it's weekends, I normally use the V11Y because I want just to go and see some rabbits and some ducks, and I just want to chill out. That is the perfect wheel. I want to go to work, I need to arrive there quick, and I need to feel safe and high speeds, this wheel delivers that to me. But if you want the extra comfort, the extra control, you definitely need to think to purchase those little bits that I have add on this wheel, plus maybe changing the tire, because I think that's the big reason why some people don't like, and new riders are doing that mistake. So which mistake it is? This is definitely not the wheel for a new rider. This wheel, the Linux, heavy wheels like the Blitz also, they are not for you. You need to find a wheel that is lighter for you to start riding electric unicycles. This is a wheel for an experienced rider, because like I said, it's really hard to change direction when you go fast. So giving this to a new rider is not going to be a good experience. First, you can feel really frustrated because it's really hard for you to get that first momentum. So you need to give that impulse to start riding. And if you are not experienced, you'll feel all the weight of the wheel hitting you on the side. And after, what is going to happen is you just jump towards a toy for big men and you are not able to manage. And after, you get frustrated and you give up. If you are looking to something to go in a straight line, going in the middle of the cars, super fast, super stable, feels like a motorbike, this is the toy for you. I can say that is super enjoyable to ride, but is a completely different ride. If you want something to just start, to have some fun, to curve, to feel like relaxed and not having to do any effort, that's definitely not the wheel for you. Do I recommend? Hell yeah! This became my main wheel, and I simply love to ride this one, doing new roads. Like I said, yeah, I feel super safe on this one after a while, because even to brake hard, sometimes you need to trust the wheel, and it takes time, even for an experienced rider like me that I have over 40,000 miles on my legs. Next week, we'll talk about accessories that I use every single week on my electric unicycle, or even at home with my electric unicycle, no matter if it's a V14 50S or if you use another electric unicycle from Inmotion, Bigot, Veteran, or other brands.